Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai, Tejasvina vadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Pleased to see you all, seeing that you are seeing the importance of taking time out once in a while for digesting some food for the mind. Food for the body, food for the mind. We need to maintain both, yeah? Great, let's do that. And we're also not only maintaining it out of some random, wisdom left and right, but we are maintaining it out of wisdom that has been going on for a long time and unchanged, because there's no need to change it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, to change into something more rounder. It's already perfected. Vedanta is a wheel, a circle. It works no matter what, at all ages. So let me ask you a question. What is a wise person? When you think of a wise person, what does a wise person understand? What is their vision that underlies all other wisdom? What is their ultimate vision? Practical vision. What is a wise person? What do they know? What comes to mind?
One thing that comes to mind is that they would appreciate what they can change and what they cannot.
Super. They are deliberately, they are mindful where their capacity for change is and where their inability to make a change also lies. And therefore, they're able to make the right assessment, right decisions upon that. In fact, this is a big point, because if we do not know the difference between what I can change and what I cannot change, then most of our time, consciously or unconsciously, goes into what I cannot change. And the byproduct of this is complaints or lack of contentment about what is going on around us. So one of the great prayers that we used to do that I used to do with a class about 4 years ago from Swami Dayananda's book called Prayers, was the first one went something like, "Oh Lord, let me know where my ability lies in what I can change and what I cannot change. Once I know what is to be done, let me have the strength and the energy to make the right change. And let me also have the sensitivity in my mind to see clearly those things that I do not have the power to change. If not now, not tomorrow, not in the future, let me have that discernment at all times. For I only wish to have contentment in this life. And that contentment only arises out of this important distinction, what I can, where I can make a difference, and where is that difference shut off. In other words, no matter how much one tries, that difference is not yet to happen. It's not the right time yet. Sometimes it is not the right time, so we have to be patient, and that's important to know. What else is a wise person to you?
They can see the situation from multiple perspectives, as wide as possible a perspective, not just their own.
Good. Now let me expand onto Justine's point. A wise person is one that can see things from multiple perspectives. Specifically, how many? 3. What am I talking about? They know, or their understanding, their clarity arises out of these 3 important distinctions. The first reality that they are conscious of is the pratibhasika reality. What reality is this? The subjective reality. How do we define this? I see it, therefore it is. Think about this. I see it, In my mind, therefore it is. Full stop. The person, something triggers. I see the person in my mind, therefore it is. That's the first reality, pratibhasika. Internalized reality, personal bubble. The second reality is the empirical reality, the vyavaharika reality. How is this defined? It is, therefore I see it. It is so, therefore I see it as it is. The first one, subjective reality. I see it, therefore it is. Vyavaharika, God's reality. The objective reality. It is, therefore I see it as it is. Important distinction. The third reality that underlies all of their understanding is the paramartika. This is the absolute reality. This is the conscious existence. It is not a reality that can be objectified, but rather in the presence of this reality, one comes to know about not only objectivity, but also their own subjectivity. One comes to know about not only about one's own daydreaming. What are you doing? I'm daydreaming. Where are you in my little world? What are you doing? I'm appreciating God's world. Both of them are in the presence or come in the presence of the third, the paramartika reality. So going back to Justine, they can see things from multiple angles. We simplify that. How many angles? 3 angles. Subjective reality. I see it, therefore it is. No, it's not. No, I don't care. I see it the way that I see it, therefore it is. Full stop. Second, vyavaharika. It is, for example, a flower. A flower is a flower. That's called objectivity. If you look at a flower and you go, wife happy, that's not called vyavaharika. That's called pratibhasika. I see a flower and I go, okay, so that flower I'm going to pick and I'm going to make my wife happy. Okay, that has its practicality. Absolutely beautiful. You love your wife. You love your wife. You love whoever it is. But I see the flower. I don't define it. I don't superimpose, overshadow my own perspective over it. And paramartika, the absolute reality in whose presence both the pratibhasika and the vyavaharika come to be shone upon, come to be known as they are. Okay. Now let's talk about what happens if, extending on to what Justine said, if you mix these up, if you don't know these 3 realities, because this is an important point. Suppose I don't have information about, suppose this is common, only paramartika, right? Only consciousness existence. And I don't have the other 2. One of the examples, common things is, okay, so a wise person should never experience physical pain. Why are they experiencing physical pain? They're not wise. They're not liberated. Next. If you heard this before with Ramana Maharishi, the great saint, how did he die? He got cancer in his left arm. There was a series of people who used to say, you see, he got cancer. He's not enlightened. He's not liberated, because a liberated person doesn't get cancer. They are healthy. This is called not having information in the light of the scriptures, which are pointing out the vyavaharika reality. That man is still carrying a body that still works with the same biological, physiological, chemical orders that every other ordinary body in this world has also, because it is governed by what we call the vyavaharika world, the world that we do not have a say. We just get to observe. And hopefully we get to see it as it is instead of having our own say about it. That is called reality number 1. Another example. Suppose someone is grieving for the loss of their loved one. And they come up to you. They come up to, the supposedly a partially wise person. And they say, I lost someone. And then the other says, no, don't worry about that. This is all just, you just focus on the absolute reality. None of this matters. You know, this is beyond, you're beyond time, you're beyond space, you're beyond all of that. Is that appropriate? Is that helping the other individual? Absolutely not. So this is the product of not having the three realities clear. So a wise person is the one who keeps these three orders at all times, and that is what we call clarity, having that absolute clarity. Now, how do we tie this into chapter 16? We need to know what are those qualities that keep our vision straight. And one of the visions that of a wise person is not being afflicted by opposites. Now, what does it mean to not have too much opinion about the ups or too much opinion about the downs? What does that mean? Whatever is happening is still governed by this infallible order, Ishvaraha. And this knowledge serves as your shock absorber. Now, you take that knowledge out, then what's the product of that? What's happening is unfortunate. Now I have to deal with it. So it becomes very isolated, very contracted. So the moment we bring in this knowledge, then it's a relief. This person is going through their stuff. I'm going through my stuff. They're going through these, probably mixing up one of the pratibhasika over vyavaharika, putting subjectivity over objectivity. Maybe I'm also doing that. And all of this is governed by this one order. Whatever I receive, I neither accept immediately nor I reject completely. What does this mean? Objectivity. This is called detachment. What is detachment? An independent thinker. In other words, even though I still appreciate what you give me, your feedback, I neither accept it immediately nor I reject it. Why so? Because I still have my own independent right to think. This is called detachment. You neither accept immediately nor do you reject, but you also bring in your own thinking. And then in the light of your thinking, you make an informed, intelligent decision. That's called detachment. Nothing to do with, no, I don't care, apathy. That's called apathy. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you, none of my business. I am beyond all of this. No, you're still listening, still engaged, still involved, still care about another's opinion because they too have a certain sharpness about their vision and they can give you some input. Now, suppose that the person has a few distortions in their mind. How is then one supposed to look at the objective reality called the vyavaharika? Is that possible? Suppose one's carrying like personal notions about how the world is, what the world is supposed to be, how I'm supposed to act, what you are, what you're not, and so on. And suppose this is clouding the mind. Can that kind of mind see the objective reality? No, impossible. And what do we say earlier in the course, chapter 13, 14, and 15? Wherever there is mithya, that's called vyavaharika, that's exactly where satyam is. So if I cannot even see mithya because I'm too busy seeing my own mithya, that's called reality number one, pratibhasika, how will I see the mithya objective reality? And if I cannot see the objective reality, how will I understand that wherever there is mithya, that's where satyam is? Wherever there is pot, that's where clay is. Because I'm too busy stuck in my own world of what a pot is. Therefore, I have to remove that. And how do we remove that? By aligning ourselves with Daiva Sampat, chapter 16, and getting away from Asura Sampat, which is also chapter 16. In other words, divine virtues which align me with the mithya world, and also those virtues that remove me from the mithya world into my own mithya world. So we have to see that. And let's continue from last week. Daiva Sampat, divine virtues, alo luptvam, freedom from the temptation to yield to sense objects. Describing biting into a lemon, saliva comes. So what is alo luptvam? Even though something as powerful as a lemon presents itself, it may not be a lemon, I'm still able to hold myself independent, that's called attached, that I just described, independent of what is arising before me, while still being fully engaged with you. still fully engaged with you, and yet there is something in me that remains strong, independent, unmoving. What is that? Alo luptvam. Freedom from temptation to get lost. Because when I get lost, the irony is, it seems like I'm fully with you, but I'm no longer with you. I've forgotten about that individual who can actually give so much more than that little lost one who is now at the subject or the mercy of that temptation. Therefore, there's something in oneself that remains independent. The independent thinker, the detached thinker, and yet fully involved. Raja Guna, impulse buy. See something, don't think twice, buy it. You've seen those on YouTube, maybe the, how do they call it? The Black Friday, right? Black Friday. I saw one video, you know, the shop, they were just standing there 5 o'clock, I think 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and the doors open. It's like a stampede, man, carrying, you know, the 50-inch LCD or plasma TVs, you know, fighting over, punching each other for a box to be stuffed in a corner and even watched a couple of hours and losing one's sense of practicality over that instrument over there. Passive listening, not even engaging the brain anymore, just looking, turning on, all that, losing my senses, submitted to temptation of the TV. Alo luptvam, freedom from temptation. So let's get personal. What are you tempted by? What do you have a weak spot for?
Cheese.
We need to build alo luptvam, freedom from. Now you put the cheese in front of you and you look at it for 5 minutes and you start to see Ishwara's infallible order in that cheese. How was that cheese made? What process took place for that cheese? Think about the cow, you know, the mother at some point, and how that cow was born at some point long ago. You may not see it, it doesn't really matter, but you can still think about that cow being guided by the cow intelligence, who one day happened to walk inside a stable, and then, you know, they used the machinery to extract the milk, and all of the process that milk went through to ultimately reach through the mixing process, extraction process. And who was doing that extraction process? Do you know that man? What does that man believe? Where does that man live? Was it the other side of the country? What country was it? Do you know that? And then the packaging process, and what kind of conveyor belts were there? You know, the stainless steel, the cheese on the stainless steel, and then the packing, and then the vacuum extracting the oxygen out, and then putting inside a cartoon container at the back of a truck on the road, and then it arrives at a shop. And then there's Alison walking with a few bucks in her hand. She buys the cheese, and to that she says, I have a weak spot for. Huge process that took place. So in other words, once again, you're starting to look at all of the intricacies, the vast order, the interconnected order that took place for that temptation to be there. The moment we forget about that vast order, that intelligence, we immediately submit to temptation. As I said last week, as you hold that big picture, temptation simply vanishes away. The moment I see myself as a single individual living in a single place, a single house, a single room, with a single family, with single desires, then all of these problems start to come. I submit to temptation. I submit to forgetting about dharmic values and my own personal values. Keep the big picture in mind. Infallible order is running the entire universe right now, running the sun. The sun is taking 8 minutes for that light to reach Earth. 6,000 degrees on the surface of the sun, inside a lot hotter. How did that sun come about? How was Earth created? What took place for us human beings to come to this place and even develop the senses, the 5 senses, for cheese, for salads, for meat? And then you're looking at this moon. How did the moon come? At some point, maybe there was a meteor that struck Earth, and then all of the rocks, you know, they slowly through time, they started to collate into this huge, vast rock. All of this took place, and there is an individual now saying, I have a weak spot for cheese. You know, keep the big picture in mind. In the Mahabharata, Adi Parvan, so there's 18 Parvans in Mahabharata. The Adi Parvan means like Adi Shankara, so first, in the first chapter. there is a story of Garuda who was taking the ambrosia, the amritam, it's like nectar, to his mother. And the amritam was something that wars used to be fought over because it was the nectar, you know, it was the nectar of immortality. In other words, think about this. It is that which everyone's seeking. What is everyone seeking? Immortality, which means what? I'm seeking for limitlessness. I'm seeking for self-knowledge. So he was taking that to his mother, and throughout the way, he didn't take even one drop, something that wars would have been fought over. And Bhagavan was so impressed, he said, Vishnu was so impressed, he says, I want to make you my vehicle. Think about that. He was so impressed by the sticking to that inner lack of temptation, strength. What do I need to do? What is my duty? This duty is for the Lord in the form of my mother. Let me deliver instead of submitting to the temptation, even if it's immortality. He was so impressed, he made him his closest vehicle. What more could you want than the Lord to invite you and says, hey, be my closest friend, the one that is always with me. Beautiful symbolism here. How is that attained? Aloluptvam, freedom from temptation. So if you and I were to be the sons and daughters of this vast order, suppose, and if we could impress this vast order, how would that be? Freedom from temptation. Staying firm and true to something in you that is a lot bigger than this cheese on the table.
Madhava is absence of cruelty. It comes from the word murdu, which means soft. The petal of a flower is murdu, softness. A kindness in attitude is what we call mavada. People should be able to talk to you freely, happily, without fear of harsh words. This is Madhava. There are some people who are kind but very harsh in their expression. There is a story that illustrates the different types of people. An old Brahmana arrived in a village just at lunchtime. One person spoke to him very nicely for about 5 minutes and then asked if he had eaten. When he replied that he had not, the villager lamented that his household had just finished their meal and directed him to another house. His words were all spoken softly, like a knife going into butter. When the Brahmana went to the other house, he was greeted curtly but fed abundantly and was invited to rest also. These are the two types, one not giving and soft, the other very giving but very harsh. The second is definitely better, but we need to be both, giving and soft. The softness is very important because it implies accommodation, accepting the limitations of others, and understanding from where they come.
What's the opposite of gentleness?
Cruelness.
Yeah, cruel, harsh, intolerant, inconsiderate, stepping over, dominating, insensitive. So mardavam, soft, gentle, supple, tender, polite, harsh, cruel, rude, insensitive, soft, gentle, tender, polite. Even the voice changes. Mardavam. And mild-mannered. I am seeing you with equal rights as myself. I'm suspending all of my qualifications, all of my experiences, all of my achievements in this moment, and I'm relating to you as one with no qualifications, no achievements, nothing, just whatever is going on right now. Mardavam. And such people also, they invoke protection. You're likable. So our tone, our expression, our words, everything takes on this gentleness, politeness.
I was just going to say tone of voice is really important too, because sometimes the words can be kind words, but they're said in a brash manner, and then you get a completely different reaction from, even if it's kind words, it can come across as very brash and harsh.
Yeah,
just from the mannerisms and the tone of voice.
true. You know, in NLP, we say that only 7% of your words account for the total communication model. 38 to 37 is your tone, as Lorena said, and 55 is your body language. But let's go back to the tone of voice. 37 to 38% is your tone. Speaks a lot louder than the words. We can say one thing, tone. Yes, Alison.
If you're harsh, it's very hard for someone to hear what you're saying, even if it's true or accurate, or you have a reasonable point of view, because their ego is just going to fight back. They cannot hear you because they're defending themselves.
Yeah. So I cannot really hear what they're trying to communicate. And it also triggers the other individual if they're not strong.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So see, there's always the one person that has to remain strong in the conversation. So we cannot say, you should say this to others, you don't understand what they're not like this, but it doesn't matter. There's always going to be one that's going to be, hopefully two, but there's always has to be this one who is going to be a stronger one. It might as well just be you. Instead of waiting, let them be the one who is going to maintain this. No, you are the one. That's called responsibility. And it's every person's right or duty to have this sense of responsibility. So as I said last week, the more you learn, the more your swadharma changes in the light of that knowledge. See, once you hear this, alo luptvam, gentleness, that is it. You can't go back from then on. That's what we mean by your swadharma changes according to the more you learn. And it is that person's duty thus to sustain the conversation in the light of their own learnings, because that is how we make a change, a difference in the world indirectly. The more you learn is to uplift your environment, uplift your child, uplift your husband and your spouse. Right? Don't wait for them. You do it first. Next one is hrihi, modesty. Being modest about your achievements. In other words, you make your achievements less than you actually have. This is called modesty. You're successful, but when someone asks you, what do? You actually lower it. That's called modesty. Like, you don't want to scare them. Like, hey, I don't want to scare you off. I don't want to make you jealous. So let me be modest. Well, just a little bit here and there. If someone compliments you, you're shy. That's also called wisdom, modesty. You get shy. Instead of going, yeah, it's absolutely, let me tell you more about me. If you do something wrong, even though there's no one watching, and you get highly self-conscious, that is also called modesty, wisdom. Shy talking about yourself. Hey, Lorena, tell me about yourself. Oh, shy. That is also called modesty, wisdom. By the way, I'm not talking about low self-esteem, shy, low self-esteem, embarrassment, talking about not wanting to say a little bit about yourself. This is a different story. So these are all wisdom traits. Shy, talking about oneself, embarrassed when complimented, lowering one's achievements, making them more down to earth, ashamed of doing something wrong. These are all wisdom traits. Achapalam, freedom from restlessness. In other words, stillness and steadiness, or equipoise of the mind specifically. For example, one of the things that you should never do is unnecessary twitching or scratching, and you're just like moving unnecessarily, or your leg is twitching, or your arm is moving up and down, just stop. Why? Because the body affects the mind. And since the mind is a lot harder to control than the body, how do you control the mind? Or what's the good way to start? Stop with the twitching, with the unnecessary leg movement, unnecessary pen, twitching, or whatever it is, because it's going to directly influence the mind. So in other words, achapalam, Stillness is refusing to engage or to continue that unnecessary body movement, because that's going to agitate the mind. In fact, the mind represents the body, but since the mind is hard to stop, stop the body, and the mind follows. What about frequent message checking, impulsive Facebook, or okay, maybe not that impulsive. What else do they have nowadays? Instagram, SMS, maybe not that. What do they have today?
Email.
Oh, okay, email, yeah. Yeah, like email, every 5 minutes I have to see who's sending an email. Open window, like in front of your monitor, dedicated for email, always open.
TikTok.
Interesting why that platform came along. Attention span shortens and shortens and shortens. Give me something that's going to really engage me. So this was based on a survey. What are people looking for? We're looking for short videos. Why don't we want long videos? Because our attention span has shortened thanks to internet and so on. So we want shorts. Raja Guna, extreme. Next, no thinking, just swipe. I remember flying between Byron and Sydney when I began teaching. I was shocked what I used to see every single flight. I tell you, sit down, and there was two friends, talking, or it could be a single person next to me. You know what happened? The phone got pulled out, just like, random swiping. What icons are on the phone, puts the phone back in, takes the phone out, launches Tetris, plays 5 seconds, puts the phone back into pocket, continues talking with friend. The moment finishes talking with friend, pulls the phone out, takes another app, checks his SMS messages for another 5 seconds, puts the phone back in, continues talking with a friend. Another takes the whole flight like that. Every single flight I flew was like that. This is impulsiveness. So how can we turn this into a practice? Still the body. Refuse at least once to impulsively next time check.
I've got a plug-in on that you can get for YouTube. It's called Unhook. What it does, it stops all the suggested videos coming up.
And also I heard in a book called The Flow, and there was a research done, it said that it takes on average 20 minutes for the brain to get back into the flow the last time it's been interrupted. So every time there's an impulsiveness, I now have to wait, I have to now concentrate for 20 minutes to get back into that peak state of flow, peak state of thinking. So it's just a continuous state of non-productivity. Tejaha. This is an aura or a glow that, quote, shines around the person. How do we call this? So it's not so mystical. Just that general vibe that you receive about, or that others receive about you. Let's not make it about you. So how do others feel around you in general? Even if you didn't say anything, how do they feel about you? Do you know? And did you know that however they feel, that aura, that glow, that tejaha can actually be changed? It can be beautified. How so? What knowledge you carry? What values you carry? How are you living every day? All of this builds this aura around the person. How do I live, conduct myself with the world? That adds on to that aura. What knowledge, what values do I see or have about the world? That also contributes to that aura. Did you ever have that time when you were in maybe a spiritual circle, and there was just a really strong presence about someone? Did you have that? Like just whatever it was, maybe it was a business event or a seminar. It was just a strong presence about someone. It's almost unavoidable. They're almost like, they hook you in. That's called aura. What are your intentions? A child will sense this. They're experts at aura detection, aura meters, the little ones are. So are animals. Don't get offended though. Sometimes an animal is going through his own little mood. Again, this is why the wise people are portrayed with animals. Their aura is so friendly. It's non-threatening because their intentions are kind, gentle, supple, honest. So what intentions do you carry at thought level? What knowledge are you carrying in this mind? and how are you perceiving the world. All of this contributes to your aura. So many people came to Ramana Maharishi, and they all said the same thing. His aura is just amazing. It is just peaceful to be around him, Ramana Maharishi. His mind was so beautiful, so clean. You know, especially those times in India, you didn't have internet. There was no, you know, for a child 16 years old and onwards, there was no opportunity for naughty things online, you know, pictures and so on. None of that was there to affect the mind. He went straight to the contemplation mode, caves, you know, different places around India, up and down, rocky regions. 20 plus years contemplated. And the product of that, an aura that was so welcoming, people just didn't want to leave him. Your mind just goes silent instantly. Kshama or titiksha, this is patience or tolerance. So the first is, how is tolerance built? It's built through, or it's gained through tapas. In other words, as I said last week, you are exposing your body mind deliberately to unpleasantness, with intelligently exposing, not just you know, mindlessly, for the sake of building that fortitude, that patience, that ability to sustain the unpleasantness. And the second meaning of tolerance is non-arrival of anger. Now, this seems impossible, right? But Adi Shankara in chapter 3, he writes a commentary. He says this is absolutely possible. And he says that the only way for non-arrival for anger to become true is by looking at your expectations. Are they obstructed? Obstructed expectations equals anger. Now, the question is, what are expectations?
Desire.
Desire. Okay, so what is desire now?
Projections.
Okay, what's the product of projections? What causes projections? Okay, it is pratibhasik, it is a personal reality, but what is more detailed?
Vasanas or samskaras.
Vasanas, samskaras, which is your likes and your dislikes. In other words, what I absolutely want to happen or else, and what I don't want to happen or else. Obstructed expectations leads to anger. What are expectations? Binding vasanas, binding likes and dislikes. It has to be this way or else. So what's the solution to this? Well, first of all, you can change those binding expectations into what you call preferences. How do you do that? You say, if it happens, it doesn't really matter because it's not the end of the world, for example. You know, and there are other people who are good without this. It is only my own preference. It developed somehow, but it's not absolutely necessary that it has to happen. And that's a fact. You're not lying to yourself. That is an absolute fact, because there are other people who are good without it. True way to get rid of anger is how? Lower your expectations. So next time a delivery truck service or a service says, you will get your product in 2 days or 1 day, a little test for you. You can say, oh, okay, I'll get it in 5 days. That's a good way to start. Lowering of expectations lowers anger. What produces expectations? Things have to be according to this. You have to treat me in a certain way. You have to speak to me in a certain length of time. This is called quality time. You know, the 5 love languages? Some people get complimented by quality time through compliments, through giving. Feel love only when I do perform an act of service to you. Now, suppose that your love language is positive affirmation. That's how you feel loved, okay? But because my love language is act of service, so I think you will feel loved if I do things, and then I do things for you, and you don't feel loved. What's the problem there? Okay, well, you got expectations, but a little bit more than that. You know, you need to communicate to me. You say, you know, I expect for you to give me some positive affirmations because that's how I feel loved by you. So it's a 2-step process. Not only do you drop your expectations, but second, you need to be honestly communicate and know what is it that, or how is it that you feel connected or loved.
Thank you. How about reminding oneself that Ishvara gives the results and we are just part of the field, and to accept that a bit more along the karma sort of thinking.
Yes. So Alison is saying is that the third way, okay, so first way is lowering expectations. Second way change those expectations to preferences. And third way, as Alison is saying, is understand this universe. You're just one little part of it. This is not your universe. You are a guest in Bhagavan's house. You know, when we go to someone's house and we're a guest, how do we act? Politely, respectfully, right? We follow his or her rules. Guess what? You're not inside your house right now. This is not your room. This is Bhagavan's room. You're inside his house, the total grand order. And he runs the show, she runs the show not according to your needs. Ishvara is not in the business of making you happy, by the way. Ishvara is in the business of what? Accommodating the needs of the total. Everyone's needs have to be accommodated simultaneously. That is the job of the grand order. And you may not be in the favoring side, and sometimes you are. Understanding this, that this infallible order carries this vast network perfectly, whether we understand it or not, that is one great way, as Alison said, to lower our expectations. Okay, it increases your tolerance towards the unpleasantness, but it also makes you even more cheerful when pleasantness does come.
Minimizing the gap between the expectation and the acceptance.
In other words, acceptance is knowledge, is understanding that this could have not happened any other way except the way that it has happened right now. And I accept that. Lack of acceptance is no. It should have been according to what I think is right. Going back, pratibhasika, personal expectations, personal reality. So again, what is acceptance? When people say you need to accept what is happening to you, what does that mean? Someone tell me.
Surrender to God's will.
Yeah, in other words, and now what is God's will? When we say the word God's will in English, what we're talking about in Sanskrit is purushartha. This is destiny. This is karma. This is the way that it's turned out on the basis of the cause-effect relationship that has been going on even before you were born as a human being. And you just find yourself as an individual in the line of fire, quote, in the line of fire of the circumstance that's going on right now. And what is something that you as an individual can do? Understand. This is not my house. This is his house, his order. Liberated or not, there is still that empirical vyavaharika world that I have to comply with. Okay, this is why the wise person doesn't reject someone else's grief. Dhritihi. This is fortitude, persistence, or courage. They are continuing their sadhana no matter what. In other words, not yielding to complain. I'm not going to complain right now. My back is sore. I need to meditate. No, I'm going to sustain. I'm going to meditate for an extra 5 minutes because that was my initial goal. Yeah, but my back is sore. It doesn't matter. Stay 5 minutes. Oh, it's cold. It doesn't matter. Stay 5 minutes. Oh, there's noise. Doesn't matter. Stay 5 minutes. Knocking on the door. The dog is scratching the door. Doesn't matter. Stay for 5 minutes. Putting up with discomforting things in your life. What is your tolerance? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 10 seconds? Is it 30? Could it be 40? What about 1 minute? What about 5 minutes before a complaint is there? Could that be increased? That is through sadhana. And how do we develop that? By intentionally tapaha, staying with the unpleasantness. Next one is shaucham, purity. This is cleanliness and orderliness.
Shaucha, cleanliness is of two kinds, inner and outer. External cleanliness means keeping the body, clothing, and the environment clean. This is an important discipline because it helps create a healthy frame of mind. Inner cleanliness is a mental disposition that is the opposite of one assailed by emotions like hatred and so on. Whenever these disturbing emotions are detected, they are replaced by their opposite. If there is enmity, we replace it with understanding, and if possible, friendliness. If there is hatred, we analyze what is it that is hated and try to understand it. If this understanding is complete, love or compassion will naturally arise. If it is not, we deliberately introduce these emotions, shifting our attention to what is lovable about the person or why he or she is deserving of compassion. We have to look into our own mind, and as these emotions arise, create the opposite attitude, pratipaksha bhavana, and thereby develop a mind which is predominantly sattva. Other important ways of bringing about inner cleanliness are daily prayers, japa, meditation. These are all cleansing acts because there is surrender involved. Anything the mind might have gathered is dropped in prayer. What sorts of things does the mind pick up that it needs to be freed from? Shankara lists deceit, being under the spell of likes and dislikes. Having likes and dislikes is not a problem, but when under their spell, we act against dharma. If our likes and dislikes happen to correspond with right and wrong, we are totally free. But if we go against dharma to fulfill likes and dislikes, we are constrained to say that the person is under the spell of raga dveshas. This is the impurity, and it has to be cleansed by prayer and pratipaksha bhavana.
Okay, you are expert reader, Thomas.
Thank you.
The mind really is good at bringing out the unpleasantness about the world, about people, right? There are qualities that we don't admire. So my question is, suppose if you could take a piece of paper out, and on top of the piece of paper, you write lovable qualities, admirable qualities about this fellowless. And I want you to list 20 qualities you need to find about them. The one that usually complaints come. Please do that. At least write 5 right now. 5 lovable qualities about that one whom I usually have a tendency to complain or have some displeasing words about. The mark of maturity and wisdom is to find the lovable, admirable qualities as easy as we find faults in others. That is when one is really wise, beyond all of this talk and nonsense that one puts out, oh, you speak so well, you know so much. Okay, let me see you list out 5 qualities, 10 qualities about that one that you have nothing in common against. So in other words, you're tapping into that creative divinity within yourself, that creative power within yourself. And that creative power is Ishwaraha. If I cannot even tap into that and I talk about being in touch with Ishwaraha, that's a lie. So we are proving to ourselves how in touch we are with Vyavaharika. Ishwara has nothing, if it could, has nothing but love for all beings. If it didn't have love for the criminal, all criminals would be dead. One little mistake, they die. But even a criminal has a chance to make a difference, to change his approach, to change her approach, to learn from their mistakes. This is a good point. So if our likes and dislikes happen to correspond with right and wrong, we are totally free. Okay, so what he's saying is a interesting point. So there's nothing incorrect or correct about your likes and dislikes. They are there. They have to be there. There is not one person who is free of likes and dislikes, by the way. What Dayananda is pointing out is if those likes and dislikes are aligned with these daiva sampat, these values, that is what's called total freedom, because you are total alignment with Vyavaharika world, with Ishwara's order. So in other words, you're taking your likes and dislikes for pratibhasika subjectivity towards likes and dislikes for what? Daiva sampat. And that's why we're learning these qualities. Next one is adrohaha, absence of ill will. So if ahimsa is absence of ill will towards a physical level, right? Physical violence, physical expression. This is absence of ill will towards thought level. So adrohaha, absence of ill will towards others at thought level. When no one hears you, I can't hear your thoughts right now. But if one were to amplify those thoughts, what would we hear? Suppose you have an ill thought and you just can't get rid of it towards someone. How do you treat this? What's the cure for this? Pratipaksha bhavana. As I just said to you, write 5 things that you admire and love about them. This helps your mind to change focus because the mind, through habit, has been habituated to think the negatives, the unpleasantness. So now we have to give it some positives.
Yeah, look, I find if I get caught in negative thoughts about someone, if I start to repeat a mantra to myself, that changes the whole vibration, you know. So often it's either not on the Master Shivaya,
Yeah.
the CEO tradition, or the Gayatri mantra.
Yeah.
Gayatri mantra works really well. I usually chant it the way the Sai Baba used to chant it, and it just changes the whole feeling.
So this is a good point. One of the personal mantras that I have goes like this: Om Namo Guru Dev Namo. In other words, I'm invoking the Guru. And the moment I say that, I invoke the entire lineage. And when I invoke the lineage, all of the knowledge from the lineage just arrives in that second. And the Daiva Sampat comes, the Asura goes away. It just total stability in that moment. Okay, now Mina.
I was saying that whenever, you know, I have a resistance or ill thoughts about someone, I am not able to, it is very difficult for me to have a pratipaksha bhavana. I cannot see the positives in them. But I'm following this German-American writer. His name is Hans Wilhelm.
I know.
And he illustrates, you know, these concepts very well. And he said in one of his videos that whenever you see anything for that matter, you should say internally that I love and pray to the divinity in you, whatever you see. And, you know, I tried that. And as soon as I say it to myself, you know, everything mellows down, you know, my resistance and, you know, my ill thoughts, everything disappears. So I find it very useful. You know, he says that you can even say that to anything that you don't like a table, a chair, or trees, or whatever. Or you can practice it generally as well. You know, like as soon as you open the door in the morning, you see trees, you see sky. You just remind yourself that I love and pray to the divinity in you. So that really helps.
Beautiful. Or another similar one that I have is, may God's love bless this person's soul. May God's love bless this person's soul.
And, you know, when we read this sentence that if our likes and dislikes are in line with dharma, and suppose I see someone doing adharma, which I have, you know, no tolerance for, and then I build up that animosity with that person, what to do in that situation. I think I read scriptures a lot, and Ramayana helped me, you know, dealing with this situation. It is just recently. So there were two anecdotes there that Shiva, while telling Parvati about Narada, you know, he thought he has one desires and anger. But then when Vishnu, you know, he showed Maya, and he just you know, he was angry and he had the karma again. But then Shiva says that nobody is intelligent and nobody is murkha. It is when God, you know, it's the God's creation, it's the law, it's the order that the people get caught in, and then accordingly they behave. Also, when Parvati, you know, committed a mistake, then also Shiva did not blame her. He says that, no, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's the, you know, the situations that led you towards it. So reading Shastras and these kinds of anecdotes help me, you know, to understand what I'm dealing through and how should I behave in those circumstances.
Yeah, so this is very good. So again, one of the points Amina said is, see, this person that you have something, suppose they're doing something adharmic or something that's uncool, then again, see, they're a product of many, many, many causes. And, you know, the parents they were born in, maybe the privileges received, and some, maybe they got bullies from some other school kids that left a scar in their minds. And that caused that sense of resistance or rebelliousness towards others. And that modifies their behavior now, which makes them a little bit unfriendly and so on. So many things could have taken place for this person to be who they are right now.
Thinking when you were saying bringing it in, I was thinking if you just witness the thought that arises and see that coming from yourself and just have a step back from it.
Yeah.
And then realizing that thought can become a word, and then that word can become a deed, and that can manifest. So just going back to the roots of why you think that way and having that step back and not reacting straight away.
Yeah.
Just having that space between the thought and then the word, and then the deed won't happen. So it's sort of like you get that equanimity back by just witnessing that thought arising.
And you can do that, Lorena, after having, what I suggest is after having gone through understanding their standpoint. Otherwise, if we don't take the time to look at where they were coming from and to look at their karma and their product of various causes, it's going to keep on coming on and on and on again. I'm going to keep on discarding as, it's just witness the thought, but I haven't resolved the core issue. So yes, resolve the core issue by looking at it, as I put on the board some sessions ago. And then you can start to witness that thought, because that thought has a propensity to keep on coming, just like the fan. If you turn the fan off, right, you solve the problem, but the fan is still on, right? Because of their momentum. So even if you resolved something about them, they're still going to keep on coming in your mind. That's because of that previous momentum. So that's when it's wise to start to witness and create some space and not really get too involved in it, because you're already taking care of that, looking at it through the order's eyes.
When we say that, we should keep the big picture in mind and thinking about where the person is coming from, what is his conditioning, what kind of situation he or she has been through. Sometimes, and I think most of the times, we don't have that kind of, visibility into the person's, life, what that person has gone through. For example, in corporate world, I'm dealing with a colleague, or I'm dealing with a boss, or maybe a client. I don't know, what background they are coming from, what is their conditioning. So at that time, it is difficult. So therefore, when I heard from Hans Wilhelm, that okay, that person is with me, I don't know about anything about that person, and when I say okay, I love and pray to the divinity in this person. So then it just makes an instant connection, with my spirituality and that person's spirituality, or that oneness, that unity. And that helped to, reduce that animosity, or maybe the anger.
Yeah, so there's many approaches, and what's important to know is what approach works for you, and to stick with that approach. And that approach may change, by the way, and then you may find something more effective. Nati manita, and this will conclude verse 3. Humility. Humility is freedom from superiority complex. And before I move on to this, by the way, there is a certain level of self-respect and a pride that every individual has. So, Goknur is a wonderful researcher into genetics, and, someone works at corporate, and someone's got in the medical profession. You see, you've taken so much time to be who you are. You went to university, you got a certificate, you've gotten so much, you've gone through so much trouble to be where you are right now. And not need to call it trouble, just call it, work, sincere commitment, dedication, that most are not willing to go through that, or not willing to put that so much effort. You are here as a product of all of your hard work. Now, where does that turn into arrogance? It is when I start to entertain how, because of my university certificates and my grades and effort, how I am so much better than anyone else, how I am entitled beyond anyone else. That is when it turns into arrogance. From self-pride, normal, natural sense of self-confidence on the basis of your experience and hard work that you put into it, into arrogance. What went wrong? I turned it into something that I identify with. This is what makes me. This is what defines me. No, it doesn't. It is just one profession out of many. That's the truth. Even refusal to do namaskara, for example, that it can also be some indication of arrogance. Bhagavan alone is worthy of worship because he is all knowledge. I am just one product, one expression of his infinity. That one keeps in mind. Now we know what are divine traits. Now let's also recognize what are non-divine traits, impure traits. That's where we become masters at our minds. We align ourselves with Vyavaharika. What then? Then we have deeper clarity about Paramarthika, the absolute oneness.
How does one develop softness and gentleness, Madhava?
Yeah, Dayananda has a lovely expression, fake it until you make it. This is actually American style, but it works really well. Fake it till you make it. So see, first ask yourself, step one, what is softness? What is gentleness? I think we all have already an image of that. And then step two, you say, where can I add this in my, or where will I add this into my behavior? I'll give you, for example, with my one of my family members, and they are, they have this cruelness. They have this, not cruelness, but the harshness in there. Like one time, I hugged and almost broke my back. That's how much he loves me. I was like, this is uncool. You need to be a little bit softer when you show me your love. Of course, when I said this, I said, no, it's your karma to experience this pain. It's like, okay, no willingness to communicate here. So I just had to find that inner strength not to get angry and find that softness to communicate. Hey, look, right now, I really would appreciate if you just said sorry. This is what I need to hear from you right now. Is that okay? He said, sorry. I said, thank you. In other words, I deliberately induced softness by being first conscious about it. Remember at the beginning of this conversation, there's always that one person in a conversation who knows a little bit more about this Daiva Sampa. That is just a fact. And it's that person's responsibility to induce that inside the conversation. In your case, Thomas, how does one add softness? As I said, step one, recognize what is softness, gentleness. Step two, next time an opportunity for harshness comes, be a little bit gentler, hug gentler. Next time, don't squeeze someone's hand like a compressor, just, a little bit gentler.
Are these values all absolute? So I was thinking about anger, and, all the emotions that God has created, they have their purpose. It's not that, they are useless or worthless. Yeah. Like if there's a culprit, we will show anger in order to correct them. Yeah. So when God says akrodaha, absence of anger, is it really required, feasible, or possible? So yes. That's why my question is, are these absolute values, or, how I take it as, like, if I have anger, so when the anger comes, it serves its purpose and then it goes. Yeah. So it's like, I don't stay with it for longer. I just, deal with it and it's done. Is that okay? Or I should, aim for total absence of anger?
No, we should not frame for, as Mina put it rightly, one should not aim for total absence. One should just understand that they do have an indicator. Something needs to change. And every time I do make a change, because anger has showed me what happens next time, there's less chance for anger. So those opportunities of anger arise less and less and less because you are working with them. You see, so they absolutely have their purpose. And what is your swadharma? To work with them? What is to work with them? They are an indicator. Something needs to change. My perception, my expectations are maybe too high right now. So let me lower them. Let me bring in the order. And you go, okay, so this is my stuff. Next time something similar happens, the anger doesn't arise. But then it arises because of something else. And then you apply again, you bring in the order. Little by little, years through years, anger reduces more and more and more. So these are all wonderful indicators that something needs to change. This is what causes us to grow.
I just wanted to share something that helps with anger with me is it's always a secondary emotion. So if I ask myself what's underneath the anger, I can often see like there's a deeper emotion. Then I witnessed it the other day with my 6-year-old nephew. So he got stuck and jammed the door and he couldn't open it. So his real emotion was fear, but he expressed anger and started like hitting the door and, you know, got himself in quite a panic over what was really fear of being separated from us. So sometimes if I can see the underlying emotion, I find that the anger just, it's almost like dismissed because you can see what the real issue is under it. I don't know if that helps, but yeah.
There is, I mean, like through my training, there's been a trick here. When you get angry, if you automatically smile physically, if you smile, the anger subdues very quickly because it's to do with the chemicals in the brain. Yeah. What produces with anger and what produces with smile is good and bad. So if you can do a quick smile straight away, the anger comes down a bit. Because you get more dopamine in your brain, and so it actually settles down a bit. So the anger is not as heightened level. When I was thinking about this anger, I was also saying to God that you also get angry, you know, a lot of time. Like Krishna got angry when Bhishma was, Bhishma was like overpowering Arjuna. So he took that wheel of the chariot and he was very angry. And even Rama was angry when that sea did not give him the way. So I said, you also get angry.
Yeah,
so
but
why are you saying that it should be absence of krodha, altogether?
okay, what's angry? So angry because because it's appropriate right now. But inside, I am calm. I am still. I am fully alert and deliberate and conscious about what is going on. So anger is getting lost in that emotion. But Rama and Krishna are not lost in their emotion. They fully know themselves as self while anger is happening. So this is why I said at the beginning, keeping these three orders of reality. I'm vyavaharika angry, but I, paramartika, remain as I am, unaffected by all that because of knowledge.
I was just wondering about like the karmic weight of a thought if it was not ever translated into like a deed or speech. Like in a hypothetical scenario, if I was just in my room feeling angry, but it never, like I never said it or did anything to other people, does that still have a significant impact on the world vibe or whatever?
Two answers. It's going to have an impact on your state of mind. It's going to pull you down, no doubt. But in terms of karmic effect, it's called papam, no. So it only becomes papam when it's manifested in the world. When I leash out and say something and I hurt the other individual, that's called himsa, injury. Then it's going to come back to me. As long as it keeps it inside, it's going to only affect your state of mind, but it's not going to bring you papam, that unpleasant consequence in the future.
The person that I had in mind, I considered to be worse than Ravana. So, and the best I could think of was he's sometimes nice and he's not always bad. But so just say Ravana is the archetype of bad person. What would you say nice about Ravana?
Ravana equals distorted thinking, misguided on the basis of what? Many influences that Ravana has gone through. So again, you bring in the order. So I won't say anything, I'm just bringing the knowledge. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.